And the big story in this election has been the Obama administration's meddling in Israel's election. Now, reports indicate that Bibi Netanyahu's main opponent, Itzhak Herzog, may have gotten help from the Obama White House. Here with reaction, former Israeli Ambassador Dori Gold and former Chief of Staff to Benjamin Netanyahu, George Birnbaum, is here. Guys, good to see you. Dori, let me start with you. If you look at the report of Fox News and this whole Victory 15 campaign, V15 campaign, we had Obama campaign operatives on the ground in Israel, literally trying to unseat a sitting prime minister of a United States ally. This is unprecedented. Have you ever heard of anything like this before?
I have not heard of anything like this before, but I just want to say one thing. Whether you're talking about European NGOs or all kinds of connections to external powers, that strategy backfires on the people of Israel. No one likes to feel that the election is influenced by outsiders, and you can see the result tonight. Everyone thought that in the exit polls that Likud would come out with 20, 21 seats. Well, 28. It's got 27 or 28. Yeah. 28. And that means that the people of Israel voted against any external interference in Israel. They also voted for United Jerusalem, which is the prime minister's position, and they voted for defensible borders, not going to the 67 lines. Those are important, fundamental positions that are confirmed by the voting trend we're seeing tonight.
Mr. Birnbaum, why would a sitting U.S. president try to influence the elections of an ally the way President Obama's allies have? There's now a Senate investigation, a probe that's going on right now, looking into funding of the One Voice movement because they have a subsidiary that's known as Victory 15 that was on the ground trying to defeat Prime Minister Netanyahu. Your reaction to that?
Well, first, let me wish you first a happy St. Patrick's Day, Sean.
Thank you.
You know, I find it very troubling that as an American, we have a president who essentially is a hypocrite in chief. He says that he won't meet Prime Minister Netanyahu when he comes to America because he doesn't want to interfere in foreign elections, and it either overtly or tacitly helps fund the opposition of that same sitting prime minister in a national election. It's absolutely terrible. And what's worse is the way they did it was by funding a group that was trying to increase Arab turnout so that the Party of the Arabs, which among their members call for the destruction of the State of Israel, would be the group that brought down the prime minister. It's absolutely appalling.
So it's almost, Dori, as if the president of the United States is undermining the strongest voice against Iran while trying to make a deal that allows the Iranians to continue to spin their centrifuges, enrich uranium, and in the sunset years actually have a nuclear weapon when they have threatened to wipe Israel off the map more times than anybody can count. How does one interpret that he's just not a friend of Israel?
Well, Sean, I don't want to try and speculate about the attitudes of the President of the United States. He's elected by the American people. He's the commander-in-chief, and we work with him. But we are noticing in the Middle East, on the ground, very dangerous trends. We are seeing now Iranian combat boots in Syria on the ground, combat boots in Iraq on the ground. And just yesterday, Israelis who heard the radio heard a new report that there's a massing of Iranian forces along with Hezbollah forces along the Syrian-Jordanian border, with the Jordanians becoming very nervous. So I don't get it. I don't know how you cut a new peace deal, a new nuclear deal with Iran when Iran is on a roll and vanquishing country after country in the Middle East.
Yeah, I don't get it. Mr. Birnbaum, let me ask you this, because the Israeli papers reported repeatedly here that the majority of the money that was spent by V15, again, we're talking about some Obama operatives' involvement in this, campaign operatives, and that the majority of the money was spent to get the Arab vote out. What does that mean to you?
What that means is that what the Obama operatives are trying to do was reduce the percentage of the Jewish vote in such a way that would hurt the parties on the right and help the parties on the left. And let me also add that in addition to what Ambassador Gold said with regard to the Israeli citizens voted for defensible borders and a united Jerusalem, I think they also sent a very clear message to Obama and to Europe that security, especially Iran, trumps the economy, because that was the choice the Israeli voters had. On the left, it was the economy. On the right, it was security, namely Iran. And I think the Israeli voters spoke loud and clear tonight to let the Obama administration know, do not make a bad deal.
Dori, let me go to some of the political tweets that went out there. David Axelrod, obviously well connected to the president, tweeted out, tightness of exits in Israel suggests Bibi's shameful 11th hour demagoguery may have swayed enough votes to save him, but at what cost? Dan Senor said that the most durable boost to Bibi's campaign was the White House campaign against his congressional speech. This did more to help Bibi consolidate the right than anything. You agree with either one of those guys?
Well, you know, let me give a third angle. A lot of people were speculating that the prime minister's congressional speech was there to get votes, to help him in the election here in Israel. You know something? That was a high-risk move. In the middle of a campaign to go to the United States to give a congressional speech. Normally, prime ministers don't do that. And the reason he did it, it had nothing to do with the election. It had to do with his judgment that the current deal being worked out between the P5+1 and Iran is dangerous. It's dangerous for Israel, it's dangerous for the West, and it's dangerous for the United States.
George, suppose
that is the...
Go ahead.
No, and for example, you have mentioned many times this sunset clause. You know, you have an agreement which doesn't even halt the development of missiles, Iranian missiles. They can produce 10,000 missiles, as many as they want. And when the 10-year period expires of this agreement, the Iranians then can start producing vast amounts of enriched uranium, put nuclear warheads on those missiles. Those missiles are going to be, by that time, intercontinental.
It'll be a world seal of approval for an Iranian nuclear program and nuclear weapons. All right, George, let me ask you this question. It's somewhat hypothetical, but if you don't mind, indulge me. Let's imagine for a situation that evolved, that everything is reversed, and Bibi Netanyahu is using Israeli money, tens of millions of dollars, like was used against him, and his own political operatives to interfere in an American presidential election, say maybe to elect Mitt Romney instead of Obama. What do you think the media in this country would do then?
Well, in fact, in the last presidential election, Mitt Romney visited Israel, and the prime minister did meet with him as a courtesy, and the media absolutely destroyed the prime minister and accused him of trying to interfere, while all he was doing was hosting a former governor and a presidential candidate. So had he actually spent money and actively tried to bring down a current sitting U.S. president, I would think the media would absolutely go wild, attack him like crazy. And quite frankly, you see the same thing whether it's with Ferguson, where they will highlight the black on white or white on black violence, not black on white violence. It's the same hypocrisy that exists throughout the media.
All right, guys, thank you both for being with us on this busy news night. And coming up, the